no más. It looks like maybe we have sound this time. Yeah, you could hear me before. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds about right. I had been having trouble earlier today when we were doing our regular taping. There seems to be some trouble with the internet. I was noticing a program that I also watch once a day, a blog in the morning, that they were right down the road in LA and they were at problems also. So it may be that I was kind of expecting problems. And when I saw my mic light was on, but the bass wasn't lit up, and I didn't get a green light for how loud I'm talking, which is unusual because usually it just, my volume tends to make it ping. But hi, Lee, thank you for telling us that we were actually live the last time. We cleaned it up. This is Patricia O'Connor. I'm here with my counterpart. I'm totally eclipsing our cute half. That's Frida Reba Darcy. And tonight, this is the Bonsai balcony. We're at Frida's place. Yeah, there she. I keep leaning the wrong way because I'm looking in the wrong monitor. And what we have here before us is a a Dawn Redwood. This is our Dawn of the Deadwood. I have been messing around with how not to properly treat a Dawn Redwood for about 3 years now. I've gotten pretty good at floundering with this tree, and I always comment on how surprising it is to me on how poor choices I've made with this tree, considering how close of a cousin it is to the bald cypress, which I think which I think I'm doing pretty good at. I think I'm doing pretty good at the bald cypress. But let me say this: when I didn't know squat about what I was doing to either of them, it took kind of messing up with this one to kind of go, watch yourself. Watch yourself when it comes to these. I was probably playing fast and loose with equal measures with all four trees, and by all four trees, I mean this stone redwood and its close cousin, that compilation of three huge bald cypress that I have just outside there on the patio. So they are both redwoods. They are both conifers. They both lose their foliage in the winter, and there's just a few little differences between them. Uh, Bald cypresses will buttress. Redwoods, not so much. The dawn redwood, not so much. Um, Now I've already forgotten which one it is. One of them has foliage where the petioles of the little counterparts are exactly across from one another, and one of them they stagger. I know that the leaves on the dawn redwood are a little thicker and look a little bit more permanent, whether they are or not. And on the bald cypress, to me, they almost look real lacy and light and like they would be easily damaged, which is probably accounts for their high water mobility. They just grow standing in water and they just move that stuff right along. Here's a trick: when I have my big watering can, I mean, get in front of the camera. It's a watering can about that big, and I turn it loose at the base of hi Paul, how are you doing? And I start watering my bald cypress trees. The temperature around the canopy, which is a foot over my head for that compilation of trees, the air around there changes in smell and temperature and humidity. All of a sudden, this just becomes that little spot from the vascular system, from the surface of the where the roots are, to the air around there just becomes a little oasis. It just like that's just the freshest air you could possibly imagine, and it's almost spontaneous to that water hitting the ground there on those roots, moving that. It just increases. I guess it just increases the pressure the water pressure in the vascular system, and it pushes whatever was right there readily available right on out, and the air just gets fresh and cool. On the hottest days, you can really notice that difference. And I would say that's one difference between that and the dawn redwood. The foliage on the bald cypress is a little lighter and a little lacier, and probably um, is about the same when it comes to drying out its tolerance. This guy packs it up pretty quick if we get on the wrong side of the watering and a 90-degree day. What we're going to do tonight is I've been waiting on this guy to bud out to show us, and it is well and truly bringing up the rear. 2 weeks ago, like this is the 18th, 2 weeks ago, there was the first hint of green buds. And before that, I was like, well, are we going to get a free bonsai pot out of this and take the dawn redwood to the dumpster this year? Is that this the year that's going to happen? But about that time, uh, I guess I'll say Old Yeller opened one eye up, and we saw that it was kind of just playing. That it was just kind of playing. So what I intend to do tonight is before we make a ton of more buds and make this even harder to do, I'm going to try to remove this copper wire from here and from our apex. Also, this stuff, I did put copper on it, and it is annealed. It is quite. I'm meaning to say it is hardened. There. So this tree, this tree has given me. I have given this tree a hard time, and it has responded to that hard time by completely defoliating itself for almost up to a full year. I let it fall victim to spider mites, and I'll let it fall victim to powdery mildew, and then it took its time about recovering from one or the other of those. I heavily pruned the tree and carved the tree and did some other stuff to the tree. And right after that is when we had first one and then the other of those issues that I had mentioned. But what I didn't mention was I'd also had a indecision on restyling, and I decided I didn't want it to be a cathedral. I wanted it to be a formal upright. And so when after I cut off some stuff to make it more conforming to that shape, I'll look back and went, yeah, that's going to be pretty good. And it was right after that I had sucked all the energy out of the tree. It caught everything. It it was like just waiting for the bus. It caught like a tourist waiting for the bus. It jumped on everything that came around, and there for a couple of years, it would get something, and then that would be it for foliage for the year. And then it would flush back out in all the wrong places. But I would be looking at what was left of the foliage and go, don't mess with it. And then something else would happen, and we would lose all of that too. And all the while, I know that it started, I know that all of that pretty much started with me. But also, this tree has been a little difficult. I thought it was going to be an extremely easy tree, and that has been a hard realization. Sometimes it goes that way. Uh, I do see a way out of this. I do see a way to carry out my original hope for this tree. What was the original hope being uh, when this all this trouble started? It was when I thought to make it a formal upright. which is why I'm removing all the wire from this. Right now, I'm not removing the wire from this. I'm letting the blood get back into my arms because my orangutan length arms just hate working overhead. Anyway, uh, so yeah, what I want to do is get this copper wire off here before it starts getting entrenched and leaving wire marks on what is going to be what saves this tree or what saves its design aesthetic. The tree, I could plant this out in the yard on the nature trail not far from here, and it would probably take off from there and be a dawn redwood growing someplace where they normally don't, where they haven't lived in a few 100,000 years, I would say. These guys used to be pretty much everywhere from the fossil records. We know they used to be pretty much everywhere. They didn't, a lot of them didn't survive the last ice age. Apparently, a little grove of them did survive in China, good old China. And everything we have now in the way of a dawn redwood is a seed or a clone or a cutting from that grove of dawn redwoods they found right after the Korean War um, in China. So yeah, this looks like an ugly mess, and I'm not just talking about I'm not just talking about all this copper on here, but yeah, a fortune in reclaimed copper. I'm going to move past this part in a few minutes, and then we'll have a little discussion as I weed. We're going to weed some too while we're here. And we'll have a little discussion as to why we felt like we had to do this now, and what the heck we think. What the heck we think we're doing with this dawn redwood? Ugh, I win. Uno mas. No, not uno mas. I've still got no uno mas. I was right the first time. Make sure you know where that wire is so you don't go sling blading something off the tree that was a bud. Part of the point in doing this now is I could still wrap this in between where the bud sites were when they were showing, and some of those have grown out and some of those didn't. They just never materialized. So I can get this off now without hurting anything, is the hope. So far, I would say we've largely done that. This is our carnage cam, but wait, there's more. That's our carnage cam. So I'd say we got pretty lucky. All right, now here's what we're looking at. As far as I know, there might only be two living veins. There might only be two veins of living tissue on the whole dang tree, and that could be these two guys that I have like turned to you. Then we have this, which the tree thinks it's its apex. It's also trying to make a second apex out of this. Let me see if I turn it. Okay. Then, but this second apex, I could bring it right there in tight so that we could get a little fusion thing going. And I don't know that that's a bad idea, but I have a huge clod of lumber here, and then I got a branch coming up here. Oddly enough, I think I can just see it. There's a little bit of a nub you can just see right here. It would maybe be a good time to cut it off, except there's more little buds coming out at the base of it, so I won't. what I'm saying is I might could take this and bend it down out this way, and this could be in the future at least one decent branch. I put more stock in that as a potential decent branch for several reasons. One, this isn't future material for me. I would like to maybe get this to fuse. I'd like to maybe get that to fuse onto the base to carry out this line here. But I'm also going to get this side to do that on this side, just like this. And that's going to be our vein of living tissue. I could actually cut this huge Lincoln log sticking out of the side of the tree down, back down to a usable, believable, not the worst diameter. And it may look like something that was damaged as a part of whatever happened to the rest of the tree, or it may just roll over and we'd be okay. Either way, we would have this little branch here that's not poorly placed. It's just coming out of a lot of overgrowth from all the catastrophes that this part of the tree has already gone through. Hello, Facilitate. How are you? So my idea is that I had a piece of garden twine. I had a piece of garden twine around this, and that's going to go back. We're going to make sure that this piece of that this apex that it thinks is the apex. And we're going to do everything we can to facilitate the fusion along there close to the base of the tree. We're also, this is not something that I'm really crazy about keeping. This isn't something that I see a lot of future in either. But stuff coming out of the base of them will be the future of the tree. And also, all of this stuff is just still creating, we're just trying to keep the lifelines going. You know, right now, this is already too big and too naughty and too ugly to be anything other. When I turn it that way, you can kind of see what I mean. Same with this, but I can cut this down to a usable size, eliminate this at some point. But in the meantime, it's putting a lot of energy back in the tree, and God knows the tree needs it. Same with this, same with this. Also, there's buds all over the base, any one of which I could decide to just single out the bud coming out of the very, armpit. Boom, we get a bud there. We cut all of this off and let that bud be our new delicate little branch that we can start vibrating off. And if this side does that, produces something down here, we can cut all of this Lincoln log stuff off the side of the tree and let that guy be and let that guy do its work for us. There's no way that this is going to totally fuse with the tree without its base, which is way over here, a little too far away. It's like coming out of here. So there's no way that's going to do anything, fuse along with the main trunk without creating a huge web right in here. The best we could do is let it fuse along here and then just cut all of that off and hope it doesn't kill the vein. So I don't really see a whole lot of future in this. I possibly see a future in this. I don't see a whole lot of future in this, and I don't see a whole lot of future in this. I do see them as a way to regain energy for the tree, and they're in the direction that the tree will be taken in a little while for the next couple of years while we try to put some vigor back, get this rollover to be more substantial, allow this top to be to fuse more, and then once this is fused in, and maybe this is fused in, who knows? Maybe if this fuses in short order, I'll tie it along with it and see what happens. If that looks like both of those have fused in together, then we would have two living lines continuing up, and we might get more branches out of that, or we might see more branches come out of. I'm doing this by looking in the monitor. We might see more branches come out of here out of our rollover somewhere. but so far I haven't seen anything come out of the main trunk in 2 years, and we're trying to make something happen there. And I think this is something that we could eventually make into a dramatic looking specimen. I got the wire off without knocking all of the buds off, and it's in a pretty good position. Um, yeah, I'm okay with all of that. There's nothing about that that I don't like. So we'll bring this in right in here. Now this time I'm going to make sure I've got this in a pretty good position too. Like I said, I'm not betting the farm or putting, a whole lot on that secondary apex. Um, but if we could get that to fuse, then would ensure if we can get that to fuse with the base, then we're doing something to increase the length of the living vein up the tree. And I and that um and that is certainly worth doing. That's worth doing. There's sometimes in grip world, you would hire a bystander and you would tell them on the first couple of hours, what knots do you know? And they would tell you what knots they did or didn't know, and you would just look at them and say, if you don't know a knot, tie a lot. And that's what I did just then. I tied a bow so delicately, and I got exactly what I wanted that one to do. But as I pulled it tight, I saw daylight form between this side. So I took part of the bow and the leftover string on the pull tie of the other side, and I made a kind of a half hitch, and I pulled it up tighter again. But that's garden string. That's not going to it's capable of doing as much damage as wire if we leave it on there forever. But as far as tensile strength goes, it's pretty weak, and would rot off in a couple of weeks on its own. So that's got us there. I'm just going to go through and yeah, yeah, maybe that'd be good. 2 years, and that would be nice if I could get that to happen, get all that to roll over, and it would look like something, like a lightning strike tree or something. Is kind of what I had envisioned. Also, I'm not sure, but here's what I did. I got a little peroxide, and uh, and I have Frida's little treat morsel dish, which I've just put peroxide in. What are you doing, Pat? And there's a toothbrush up here somewhere. What did I do with it? If I find the toothbrush, I'll do this. If I don't find the toothbrush, then, uh, then all bets are off. But the idea was I was going to see about cleaning up the base a little bit. Also, put the lid on the peroxide, or you won't have your peroxide. Okay. All right. I don't know how well that shows, but it's pretty wet down there. So I've got an old toothbrush that I'd used for cleaning stuff, and we're just going to go down here while we're pulling weeds. Uh, a lot of times on bonsai trees when we're cleaning up stuff, we'll go down here and see our roots coming out of the base, and there are rules that if you have some that are doing that, you'll cut them. Don't let them cross and all that. John redwoods don't like that. Uh, I think you can kill a vein of a tree that way. I believe I've also, if I recall, the warnings I've heard was like cut half of it or something. Don't cut it all the way through. Give it a give it a chance to change direction or something. Oh, that's actually working quite well. Peroxide, old toothbrush, and it's a lot more solid down there than I thought. I was worried that with all that clover and with as wet as it is, and it was frankly looking a little green from mildewy looking, not necessarily in a bad way, but kind of mossy looking. It was looking kind of green and mossy, and that's a known thing to cause rot. So I was worried that whenever I went down there and started doing this, that it would feel kind of soft and spongy, but it doesn't. It feels, yeah, that's pretty encouraging. Also, one year when we were having all of these problems and the tree had lost a lot of its foliage, there it is in the sunlight, and most of its foliage has left the building, which is to say that it is getting sunburned. And what I mean by that is that year the tree bent, the wood in the tree, and probably a vein or something in the tree died from all of the cutback and stuff I was doing. So part of the tree is just didn't have anything to feed anymore, so it's sending all of its energy to this, and the part of it that wasn't busy anymore stopped allocating energy, and the other side is in the sun getting 100 million degrees, and so as I call this thing my vampire spike, it warped, got a little bit of a hook to it that it used to not have. Also, I thought this bark would. That was a lot of copper. That didn't need to be copper either for no longer than it stayed on there. Live and learn. The wraparound, the rollover on here, I think. Yeah. The thing about raffia is I have a bunch of raffia, and I'm not used to using it because of all the because normally when we're bending and doing stuff where you kind of think of raffia, it's on it's on pines. But I do. I have a good little stash of raffia right here. I also have a little trick with raffia that I do. Everybody else brings their raffia around, holds it, pulls it tight, holds it, brings it all the way around, and they've got to pull that piece all the way through, pulls it, and then holds it with their thumb and brings it all the way around. I do it I just create half hitches all the way down. I just do half hitches. They stay tight as I go. I leave a loop open, throw it in there, pull all that through, pull it tight, go make another loop, throw the end through there, pull it tight. And that's kind of how I've always done with raffia. And the reason that you don't I don't use raffia on pines is it's because mostly what we're doing is black pines, and on those guys, I want to see the cracks. I want to, if it splits, I want to see that. So, yeah, but it would probably, would probably save some of this. Or, or, or I could weed better and then not uh, let the trees get powdery mildew or spider mites, and then I wouldn't lose. And we also had a deal where we had a 90-degree day, and a couple of trees didn't like it, and everybody else was fine. But this was one of them that, on a time when the weather had been cool it had been cool and hanging out, 70s kind of slowly there, dipped up to the 80s, and then wham, 90. And this thing freaked right on out. That was what happened that year. Um, this is my always something. Dawn of the Deadwood. Do-do-do-do. Yes. The question was, do dawn redwoods like it on the on the wet side? Whereas bald cypress can grow standing in water, dawn redwoods cannot. But as they say, they like their feet wet. I would not ever let this tree dry out the way I have seen people let their oaks dry out. And I would never let my oak dry out the way I've. But yeah, that would kill every leaf on the thing. So I'm just kind of weeding right now. We're just pulling some of this. Uh, this is a lot of stargrass here. I'll go through, but I think we got most. Yeah, we got our little fungus issue on the base taken care of. That looks quite a bit better. All right, I'm going to bring this back around. That'll be our angle. Okay, this is kind of giving it a lean here, but remember I just removed that wire. That wire would be from where I am. This apex is leaning towards me. From your vantage point, it's hanging over the top of the vampire stake a little bit. I would like to wire that again at some point and maybe get it to go a little straighter. Maybe we'll look in on that, check in on that particular task a little further along in spring when some of this stuff is hardened off. Well, you know what? I could probably get away with doing that next winter when it loses all of its foliage. That's typically how we wire our bald cypress, and that's typically how we wire our dawn redwood. We wait for all the foliage to fall off of it at the end of fall, and then you can go in there and you don't have to worry about knocking any buds off. All it has at that point is it has hundreds of little goosebump looking things, every one of those being a potential bud. Um, so yeah, that's just kind of how they roll, and how we roll is we learned a lot of we learned a lot of stuff from this stone redwood. We learned a little bit about styling on cathedrals. We learned a little bit about styling on formal uprights. And we definitely learned that when you think a tree has an abundance of energy and is primed for several different styles or styling cues, uh, don't, when you don't know what you're doing, hop from one to the other with the enthusiasm and not have some big break. I could have had this tree for a couple of years and decided to do a major restyle. People do that all the time, but I just had the tree about a year and a half, and in that year and a half, I had decided that after a year and a half, I had learned something about bonsai that had made me rethink my original styling ideas. So I thought I would try to fix that and move on from life. And a lot of times, uh, it's those mistakes you try to recover from it, just make them worse. And I certainly did here. And whether or not we keep this tree or whether or not this tree finally throttles down, uh, we have done our best to try to make this thing be what it could be. It's like when you know better, do better. And we certainly figured out where we went wrong. Too much, too soon, too fast from us. And but even then, this tree has all the potential in the world to be a nice looking, probably dramatic looking, formal upright. I don't I don't like that when I see that in the thing. I see it more straight. That. Yeah. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. That's about all I'm gonna do tonight on the show for you guys live. Uh Picking weeds is okay and all, but I don't think it's necessarily uh merits YouTube quality live YouTube. I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. And our next drop will be tomorrow is Sunday. Sunday. So I will probably be enjoying my Sunday as I hope you are. We'll probably check in uh, with a little trip on the balcony after Amola. I'm going to check in and see what's happening in Amola, Italy tomorrow for one of two Grand Prix that we have in there this year. That could be interesting. And I appreciate you guys for coming out to my premiere tonight, and thank you all so much for watching. Bye.